side. Over to like to... Fritz!
Ja.
What are you doing?
Patrolling.
You don't need to patrol on a ship, Fritz.
Jawohl.
Look for these binoculars, see if you can see a ship for me.
Jawohl.
Thank you.
Ah, Herr Captain. I can see some Swedish ships, but they have barcodes.
Ah, Swedish ships have barcodes, so when they dock, they can Scandinavian. Anyway, Herr Adolf, do you know how tall he was and where he came from?
No.
He was this tall and he came from over there.
Hello and welcome to Sally Antiques, the program where we present you the interesting and unusual things that pass through our hands. We're filming in this episode in the nautical section of Sally Antiques. This is packed with really interesting and unusual nautical related items. And in this episode we will show you something absolutely unique and something that we've not seen before. Because you probably wonder, where is Ross? Well, Ross is just here 2 steps away with the thing. He knows everything about it, so pay attention.
1941, Britain stood alone. Convoy sinkings were increasing when Bismarck, the most powerful battleship in the world, broke out into the Atlantic and sank the Hood.
So here we have the Bismarck, a formidable battleship indeed. One of 2 of the biggest battleships ever built by the German Navy. The Tirpitz was the other one. Laid down in Hamburg in 1936 and completed in August of 1940. She had a battery of 8 15-inch guns firing 1,800-pound shells. She had 12 5.9-inch guns here and 20 of these 20mm 20 caliber guns here. She also had the latest state-of-the-art radar and sensing systems which helped with the aiming systems of the guns. She had a belt around the hull which at its thickest was 12.7 inches of steel, so it was well protected, and the top deck was 2 inches of steel with an armoured deck below that which at its thickest was 4.7 inches of steel. Now this was a huge threat to British interests, not only at sea but on land as well, because it could lay off the coast and bombard any target it chose to really, so it was a must get for the British Navy. In May of 1941, Bismarck set out on its first mission with the heavy cruiser Prince Eugen, and the mission was to wreak havoc in the North Atlantic, ripping into the commercial shipping as well as the British Navy up there. So they set off, and they needed a certain amount of secrecy for this. They didn't want to be spotted before they got out there. They went into one of the fields in Norway, German-occupied Norway, to refuel and prepare for their mission. Luckily for us, a Swedish ship spotted them and reported it. The British authorities were made aware of this, and we sent a spotter plane across, a Spitfire actually, and that took a picture of the 2 ships in a field. The Prince Eugen and the Bismarck's crew saw the plane, so they knew they'd been spotted, so they prepared fairly quickly, and then they set off to sea. And unfortunately for the Bismarck, they didn't have time to fully refuel. Prince Eugen did, and they were off on their way to the mission. Not long after this, encountered the battleship Prince of Wales and HMS Hood, who was probably one of our most powerful battleships. They had a short but decisive engagement at that point, with the Bismarck sinking the Hood, unfortunately, and also damaging the Prince of Wales. However, a shell did go through the hull of the Bismarck at the bow. Now this was quite decisive because it not only did it allow seawater to come in and they had to deal with that, The Bismarck also lost a huge amount of fuel due to that damage. Now, what they decided to do at that time was turn and run for France and safety. However, due to their lack of fuel, they hadn't topped up in Norway, they could only ever achieve half speed. So they were game for the British Navy. Now, in these days, people didn't have a lot of radar. We never knew. We didn't have the systems we have now. So the British Navy, there was a bit of cat and mouse with the Bismarck, but the whole of the British fleet that was available was out to get and sink the Bismarck, because we did not want that threat looming over us on the high seas. So after a game of cat and mouse, we had 19 ships that were gunning for the Bismarck. We eventually caught up with her, and there's a huge lot of detail and story that I think you should look into if you're interested in this. It's a fascinating subject, and it was a fascinating battle. Haven't got time to go through all the details now, but ultimately we wounded her. We managed to disable her steering. Now, what this did was it turned the ship around, because they couldn't control it, and it started heading back towards the British Navy, because waiting for it was 19 ships. So for the first time, it had been outgunned. And we were just actually, because it was moving slowly, it was an easy target, and ultimately we disabled it. It became a burning hulk in the water, and we were just trying to shoot it so that it would sink. Now, the Germans also didn't want it to fall into British hands, and they didn't want the British sailors to board it, so they actually scuttled it themselves, setting off scuttling detonations in the engine rooms. So eventually it went to the bottom. Out of a crew of over 2,000 people, only 115 survived. Now, because it was such an epic story, they made a blockbuster film of it in 1960, starring Kenneth More, called Sink the Bismarck. Great film, black and white. But this model actually is the model they used in the filming of the film. So it's actually a proper film prop. Technically correct for the purposes of the film. And so it is available for sale, if you're interested, on salyantiques.co.uk. And it's also in the shop, Sally Antiques, on the High Street, Old Portsmouth. So please pop down and have a look at it. And by the way, as a point of interest, we also have another model similar to this of HMS Hood, which featured in this story. So please like and share our YouTube channel and all our social media, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.